I'll call the school committee meeting to order. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
and
and
to
to
the
the republic
for
for
which
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there are no agenda adjustments. This meeting is being recorded because we have remote participation. All our votes will be done by roll call. Okay, so I will ask Tom to go over the proposed changes of the regional agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, thank you for your indulgence to jump on this Zoom outside of the normal order of our monthly business. This special meeting this evening is largely to seize upon the opportunity to have the Department of Education's legal department, having reviewed this, and the fact that the town of Pembroke has a special fall town meeting on October 21st. And so the purpose of tonight is for me to give you just a thumbnail of what you've already heard me talk about as to what's in this agreement, and so that you can take action on this. And I'll talk a little bit about next steps if this is approved this evening. So what you see on the screen here is our regional agreement with my comments in the right-hand margin, what exactly has changed. I'll go through it and stop where it's relevant, but you'll see some changes: grammar, punctuation, subject-verb agreement, missing hyphen, no substantial changes here. This, by the way, would ultimately be the version that I would send along with all the strike-throughs so people can track it. It's in the section on debt that we begin to clarify Pembroke's role in lines 175 to 178. We've added a sentence that simply says, this is how Pembroke's debt share is going to be calculated. But later in the document, we're going to discuss how Pembroke's share is going to be on-ramped over a period of 8 years. This is the exact same thing we said for Marshfield 2 years ago. Again, a couple of grammatical adjustments continuing through the document here. We've relettered some of the sections so that the section on costs reads more smoothly. So now we have a section G. This is the Marshfield section. It is what we put in for 2024. You'll see some changes, but there are no substantive changes for Marshfield or how it impacts Marshfield, but rather clarifying, because now there's a town that potentially will come after Marshfield. For instance, down here in lines 251 to 254, we talk about towns receiving offsets. And it's important to point out, so people aren't confused, which towns are going to get the haircut, which towns are getting the offset. And the answer is, right at this moment, it's the 8 towns getting an offset from Marshfield. Okay, I've added that sentence so that a casual reader a year from now could just make sure that that's abundantly clear, that when we're calculating assessments, when Jim puts that big chart together, it's going to show those offsets for a period of time. After this, in italics, starting on line 256, I've added more information to the illustration. I just want the reader to be able to, at any point in time, know that they don't need a decoder ring for which member towns are you talking about. That was the nagging question. And so I've added, wherever you see the long list of our town names, that's what the purpose was, to just say which towns are getting the offset. So that was the attempt there. I added in some clarification on this example. When we talk about enrollment reports, this can be very confusing. I know I have to repeat this to myself, that when you talk about an enrollment report from fiscal 27, the report is actually captured in October of that fiscal year, which is actually October of 2026. So if you're not careful, you might say a fiscal year and you might mean a calendar year. So this doesn't change anything, but it just adds a bit more context. Again, just trying to make for a better document. It's on line 298 that we start to see new language parallel with what we added with Marshfield, but this is the section on Pembroke. Section H. Section number 1, date of admission. This lays out what you already know, that this relationship will be considered official if you go through the typical town meeting process where you get the town of Pembroke and at least 6 of our 9 towns. But in addition to that condition, you need to have the Commissioner of Education's sign off, and the town of Pembroke will have to approve 2 ballot measures in the spring of 26, a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion and a Proposition 2.5 operational override. All of those conditions will need to be met. What's changed here in H1 is this little phrase where you see in red or pink, December 31st. And that was suggested by the department because we want to make clear to the reader that if for some reason all of these conditions aren't met by the end of 2026, the process has to stop. The commissioner can't approve something after December 31st. So again, it's with the dates of the town meetings and the spring 26 votes, it's unlikely to happen. So that was just a bit of a backstop to explaining a little bit more in number 1. In number 2, we have language that says Pembroke will pay a little over 10% of the stabilization fund balance. So they'll contribute about $331,437, and that will be payable over a 5-year period in installments, which goes on to the next page here. That was similar to Marshfield. Marshfield's installments are over a 10-year period. In this number 3 section on debt, we see, again, it's very similar language, and I won't go into the weeds here, but it's almost copy paste when it comes to, this is Pembroke's on-ramp. From years 2 through 8, Pembroke is going to be paying a share of their debt based on their enrollment. There is one difference. There's one difference, and that is Pembroke is also going to pay, and I'll flag it on line 327 through 329 right here, that one difference with Marshfield, make it a little bigger here. One difference here is that by the time Pembroke joins, there will be debt on the books that the 9-member towns will have paid, either through stabilization fund or actually part of an assessment. So this basically says that even though you had no kids in the building, you're going to join us and enjoy this new fixed asset, namely the school. So we're going to, whatever debt is going to be assessed in fiscals 26, 27, and 28, Pembroke's going to pay a little over 10%. So that's kind of, if you will, that's a look back. So that way, no one is saying that someone didn't pay their fair share. That's what that additional, when Marshfield joined, there was no debt. Therefore, there was no provision added.
Yep.
The next section on, just continuing down here from 331 to the end of this section, this is the Pembroke on-ramp. You'll see references to fiscal 29 to 36. This is where Pembroke pays as they go, just like Marshfield is doing right now. I will point out that there is one sentence here at the end that I'll point out for not primarily for Joe's benefit because it references Marshfield, but there's going to come a point in this on-ramp where you've got both Pembroke and Marshfield paying offsets. But Marshfield's going to finish its on-ramp early. And starting in fiscal 33, Marshfield will join the current 8 towns. And for fiscals 33, 34, 35, and 36, Marshfield will also receive an offset along with the current 8 communities that preceded Marshfield. So that's just spelled out here very, tried to be as clear as possible because Pembroke will, again, under this timeline, would finish their pay-as-you-go on-ramp. So this is a weighty section. If someone please just yell out an interruption, I'm happy to go back to anything you want. Starting on line 344, I basically create an illustration to bring this dense language above to life. And it just explains, show me again how this would work. So I create a hypothetical, and I won't go through it, but it's basically the same hypothetical I would have used when we wrote language for Marshfield.
Marshfield,
yeah. And
Tom,
then,
has all this been gone over by legal?
Yep. Our attorney, as well as one of the more extended delays was with DESE. But so I'm bringing you something that our attorney and DESE Legal have reviewed.
Okay.
Section C here, starting on line 379, again, similar to Marshfield. Once Pembroke finishes its on-ramp from fiscal 37 and beyond, their debt share gets calculated like everyone else, a 4-year rolling average. Starting on line 384, this is new. This is not something that was in the Marshfield provision. In this section here, what I'm calling supplemental operating, capital, and transportation assessment. Essentially, what the district would be assessing Pembroke is a sum of money for the first 5 years to address the costs that we actually have to educate the Pembroke kids in front of us. And I just want to read you the comment in the margin because there's probably no concise, this might be the most concise way I can say it. This supplemental assessment is for costs associated with the actual number of students in a given school year that's estimated to exceed the enrollment that the state uses for foundation budget calculations. Still a mouthful. What's the bottom line? I'll use Marshfield as my example. In fiscal 26, Marshfield was given an assessment based on 38 students. That's fine. That's the rule. That's the state formula. However, today we have 69 students in the building from Marshfield. So there's you've heard me talk about a 1-year lag on the Chapter 70 formula. That's eventually, I mean, all of our enrollments, our town enrollments adjust. But what I wanted to address here was until Pembroke fills its 4 grades with its full allotment, I wanted to make sure that the district was receiving a modest but a tangible amount of operational monies to offset any additional costs we would have in our fiscal 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32 budgets. So what does all this stuff in red say starting on line 389? Well, basically what's going to happen is for fiscal 28, Pembroke, whatever Pembroke gets assessed from the state, we're going to add $175,000, and that was basically an estimated number. The estimated number of students, 10, times a fixed rate of $17,500 a student. So whatever is done for the calculations for Pembroke's assessment in their first year in the district, this will be added on. And then as you go down to lowercase b, c, and d, what you'll notice is the language is written a little bit differently. So now for fiscals 29, 30, and 31, and I'll read you just the first one. It says for fiscal 29, the supplemental assessment will be Pembroke's FY29 operating, capital, and transportation costs divided by their SIMS enrollment and multiplied by 20 students. This is not an MCAS problem. I apologize. It is not an SAT. What I'm basically saying is in fiscal 29, we're probably going to be educating, busing, and taking care of 20 more Pembroke kids than they're actually being assessed because of that 1-year lag. So what we're saying is in that given year, we're going to assess Pembroke, whatever their per pupil amount we estimate times 20. So I'm going to tell you that that's probably around $350,000. That's my ballpark guess, just to give you an order of magnitude. So for fiscal 29, 30, and 31, basically that's what we're going to do. I want you to, and I'll stop there just to give you this to ponder. When Pembroke joins the district in its first year, 27, 28, it's entirely possible that when we do those enrollment reports, they might have 0 kids on their enrollment report. So just say, if you ponder that for a second, and that's not their fault. They've done nothing wrong. But for state calculation purposes, they could have 0 kids on their Chapter 70 report. And what do you do when you multiply a number by 0? But yet we could have 20 kids from Pembroke in the building, busing them, etc. So this is an attempt to say that until Pembroke fills its freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior classes, we're just accounting for the kids in front of us. And by the way, for a non-resident community, this is exactly how it works. Although they are a member community, what we're saying is you're paying as you go also for the kids in front of you, because we're educating them and busing them. And so anyway, this whole section was an attempt to just address that 1-year lag.
Yeah.
And I'm wrapping up here with a little bit of an example. And then the second to last change is this number 5. This is where we memorialize the 10 seats, the initial allotment. So I want to make clear that the 10 seats would be, when we're dealing Pembroke in, they're initially allotted 10. We have an admissions policy that will cover everything else, the older kids, the unused seats, but they're apportioned 10. We estimate that the number 10 is about half of what Pembroke might see on an average basis. They might score 20 seats on average over a period of time. And the very last change at the very end of this document, which you've seen before, is the elimination of the signatures of the town clerks, which is not a requirement of regional agreements. So it just requires the signature of you'll see on line 611, the signature of the commissioner. So, Mr. Chair, with that's the end of my overview. Happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Jack, I have a couple. Tom, when you're saying 10 students, that's 10 students per class, right? So if you have 10 in the 9th, in the 10th, it's still 10 more can come in the 9th grade, right?
What, just to clarify that just a bit, Dan, what that means is that for the first year, in the first year only,
Yeah.
and the subcommittee's emphasis was because 27-28 will be the last year in our current building. Essentially, if we apportioned Pembroke a full allotment of seats, it probably would be 20. So I would rephrase it as the first year, an allotment of 10. And after that, they would be dealt in, starting in the 28-29 school year in the larger building, they'll be dealt in like everybody else, which will be which is the proportional size of their 8th grade class.
So basically, let's just say it just started. When the first class is there, the 10th, the 9th moved to the 10th, the 9th comes in, you add those together and they got 30 kids in the school system.
Correct. That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Trying to think. I had something else, but I forgot. Okay.
Okay. So hey, Tom, it's Joe. So
hey, Joe.
Hello. So I've struggled with this a little bit, and you probably know from the meeting we had in Marshfield. Marshfield being one of the largest, if not the largest community, I've got a bunch of feedback from parents that basically have signed off and voted for the new school, yet for a couple of years, we're going to take a haircut in terms of number of students we'll be able to send. And so you and I have talked about it before. I'm just expressing it again. There's probably nothing you can do about it, but I will tell you that I've got the feedback recently on that. And so I understand the 10, bringing Pembroke to 20 the following year means that everyone's taking another 1 or 2, depending on where you fall. Students you'll lose. So again, I understand. I need to pass it on what I've heard.
Joe, if I may, Mr. Chair, if I may, Joe, your sentiment is not, it's totally understandable. And if we take affirmative action on this and the committee votes it tonight, that will be the conversation amongst our towns. There's an obvious financial benefit to partnering with an additional community. And then there is a trade-off. I'm very cautious because I don't want to sound cavalier when I say this. Please take it in the spirit it's intended in general. But the reason that I keep emphasizing the haircut is because I'm operating under the assumption that we will not be able to grow our operating budget as quickly as we in our hearts might like. Our hearts are bigger than our wallets. But if we could go, like I'm going to report to you that we have 699 students in the building, an increase of 20 students. So today, well, maybe there are a few absences, but today we have 699 kids in the building. That's a net increase of 20 students. I'm operating on the premise that this haircut is going to be necessary because we're not going to be able to go from 700 to 900 students overnight. But what I would say is, if we were in a position to grow our operating budget at an aggressive pace, that haircut would disappear sooner. So in all fairness, I don't think that's realistic. So you're right in characterizing it the way that you are. Pembroke, under our current numbers, could probably have 80 students in, let's say we kept the building the size we have it, and we apportioned seats based on a freshman class of 190 forever, Pembroke would eventually probably have 20 of those 190 seats. Times 4 would be 80. So the way I look at it is, when would this haircut, or when would this kind of dip be on paper? When would it be over? It would be over as soon as I could enroll a net gain of 80 students, if you will, to balance those numbers off. How long that would take, I don't know. The other trade-off that we all understand, but we never want to bank on it, because that's why we apportion seats, is we can say, oh, there'll be leftover seats, right? There'll be leftover seats that we can sprinkle around for all of our other towns to take advantage of. That does happen. But we don't play that game in the sense of, over relying on it, like over relying on grant money or things like that. It's like, what am I apportioned? And that's what, Joe, that's what you're basing your comments on. So
Yeah,
Missing proceed.
and honestly, Tom, I just dancing around. I'm struggling having this conversation. But again, we at least we came in last, so we sold our town just recently. To go to say yes, we want to be in. Yes, we want a new school, and now we're going to lose a few seats. Doesn't feel good, and that's all it is. Is there any opportunity? You're going to give Pembroke 10. Can you give them 10 the year after? Do you have to give them 20? I'm asking the question because that's the questions I've been asked.
Sure. We've put 10 in the regional agreement to solidify how we're going to handle year one. And the assumption is that our admissions policy would cover future years. It's not going to be fixed though, Joe, and it will. I mean, my analysis, and I'm reading off of a piece of paper I have at my table here. But when I look ahead, Pembroke's all of the town numbers are vary each year. And I don't know what the current 4th grade class, I don't know how many kids will be there in any of our towns in 4 years. But the numbers seem to be holding pretty steady. So I'm casually saying 20 as an average. But it could, it certainly could fluctuate. And if anything changes in any of our other towns, then we may see more, seats open up.
No, I think it's less about will there be seats available and more about what am I guaranteed to have for my allocation.
Yes. You are guaranteed to, assuming the school committee maintains its decades-long policy of apportionment by 8th grade enrollment, you would be guaranteed your share. And one of the tweaks to the admissions, not to blur these lines, but when we talk about an admissions policy, and I brought that to you for a first reading, what we made abundantly clear in the policy is that if a child from town X decides not to come, then we fill that spot with a child from town X who's on the waiting list. And that should further stabilize those numbers.
With Pembroke coming in, everyone's guaranteed allotment goes down.
That is, yes, zero sum. That until I can increase the enrollment, you are correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I have a question. Do we anticipate increasing the enrollment in 28, 29 when the building opens?
I would, yes, Tom. I mean, what the analysis I'm already working on right now. I mean, we're preparing a budget for fiscal 27. We're in the same size building.
Right.
So it would not be prudent to be asking for staff, certainly to be asking for staff now when we don't have the capacity to serve more students. But what I would like to do, absolutely, and it will be, when I bring you a budget presentation this December, it's going to be a budget presentation for fiscal 27, but I'm also going to signal what I would just call a blueprint. Like I want to start talking about multiple years out so you can see that. I know we could put more kids in each shop with the existing shop teachers we have. That in a bigger school with bigger shop space, we certainly could do that, which means we then have to turn our attention to the academic side and say, where are we at capacity with our academic staff? So yes, my intention would be to bring you a budget that's going to have increased staffing, and I'll be able to show you if we can increase to here, this is what we can do. And I'll be able to, it'll be in a way that you'll be able to see where we'll figure out where the appetite is for increasing the budget. But there are definitely some pinch points, and I wouldn't expect to be able to hire, a half a dozen teachers in 1 year. But I want what I'm looking at right now is, let's take this school year right now. Let's look at our academic master schedule. Let's look at class sizes in English, math, science, social studies, phys ed, health and wellness. And let's see where our capacity is, because I can begin to project out that, hey, look, we're going to be in a bigger building. There'll be more classrooms, but do I have the personnel to put the kids in front of? So that's a long answer, Tom, but yes, that's my intention, to do it in a way that our towns can support it. With a 10th town in the district, I should be able, so this is going to seem counterintuitive what I'm about to say, but we may be coming out there in the public, we may be coming with budget increases with a percentage. Like in my December presentation, I might be saying the budget increase is a much larger number than you're used to. What the real question is how is my assessment affected? Because if I'm adding a town, then we're spreading out the costs. And that's what you do. If we're growing, if we were in a normal year with the same towns and someone's coming in with an 8% budget increase, the same towns are paying for that. That's wacko. That's certainly not affordable. So it remains to be seen, but that's our own district on-ramp. We'll have a building. We need to begin to staff it up.
I've been telling people that it's just, if we opened the school up and just said, okay, we can probably fit 1,000 kids in instead of 900, but that means the money's still going to be coming in. You're going to need more of assessment because it costs more money to run for the extra 100 kids.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if I give you just one quick example, it would be, if a teacher could have a class of, let's just say 20 to 25 students, and I need kids to get English, math, science, and social studies, and I think about the teacher schedule, I'm going to need 4 academic teachers for, let's say 90 to 100 students. So let's say we had enough space in the shops. I would still need to, I need to address our allied health program and a few others to scale them up. Certainly, at a minimum. But if I was just looking at academics, I'd say I need 1 additional academic teacher in each of the 4 academic departments if we were going to bring in, let's say, 100 more students. That's super casual, Tom. There's more detail there, but
Sure.
just to give you a ballpark. So in order to do that, you can see where I'm going with this. But that's kind of the metric that I would be able to show you as a blueprint, and we'll get there as soon as our towns can say we can afford to do so. And so it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever had your parents buy school clothes where they bought one size too big. Like, you're going to grow into those sneakers.
Yeah.
They're clown shoes. They're clown shoes right now.
That's what
So
your older brother's supposed to do.
Yeah,
Get his clothes.
So we may not be able to grow into the space as quickly as we'd like, but we'll be missing an opportunity to not bring that. So I'm hoping that for fiscal 28 in fiscal 28, I'm going to ask you I need at least a plumbing teacher and a vet science teacher, because I've got to open those programs a year before the school opens. DESE expects that. So I've got some plans with some Perkins money how to do that, but it's really now about the academic capacity, and then looking at those shops and saying, are the shops adequately ratioed? And if not, we have to scale them up with a technical aid or a teacher. But I will not bring you a budget that all of a sudden has 17 teachers in 1 year. Like, are you kidding me? That's not going to happen.
So, Tom, as much as we prepare for this, if Pembroke doesn't vote for it, then it's just water under the dam anyway.
Right.
What I presented tonight only lives. It turns into a pumpkin on December 31st, and it also turns into a pumpkin if Pembroke, and I'll speak about our towns, but first of all, we got to get 6 of the 9 towns plus Pembroke at town meetings, and then Pembroke has 2 additional hurdles: the debt exclusion and the operational override. Those votes won't happen until the spring. So this matter, after our meeting and Pembroke's presuming that if there's an affirmative vote, this matter will go kind of quiet. Not quiet, because we'll be getting into the budget season, and when we start doing our roadshow to talk to advisory committees and finance committees, and we'll be going in front of select boards, because this is going to be a warrant article, and select that's their wheelhouse to review that. So we've now been in front of our towns 3 times. It'll be 3 times in the last 3 years. Marshfield's admission, the revised debt share formula. So this will be the 3rd time. It'll be Norm walking into Cheers here, on talking about the regional agreement.
Tom, I got a question. If Pembroke doesn't vote for it, but they want to come as an out-of-district student,
They are
Yeah.
only eligible for grades 10 and above after all eligible in-district kids have been
Yes, I
admitted.
understand that, but if they come and say the state says it's 20,000 per student, whatever
Yep.
it's, do they also have to pay a portion of the new building? Because they're in the new building?
That's an interesting question, Dan. And there is actually regulatory language that says that the Commissioner of Education could authorize what's called a capital increment. The general answer would be they pay the non-resident tuition, they pay the transportation themselves, and
Yeah.
if the child has a special education plan, an IEP, there's also a formula for being able to charge for any additional
Yeah.
special education services. But if they happen to be tuitioning into a building that's brand new, the commissioner could in fact do that. So that's
So
the
it could,
answer is yes.
you could push the Pembroke and say, if you decide to come out of district, it could cost you the same.
Or more.
It would
Or
cost you,
more.
it would cost you, I think, a lot more, and
Yeah.
you'd have no say in the governance of the district, and you'd be getting the crumbs of the upper class
And you have to
vacancies.
pay for your transportation and, you know, and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
they need to understand that.
Yep, I think they do.
If I could go back,
Yep.
folks, the reason I brought up the possible increase in 28, 29 is directed towards Joe when he talks to Marshfield. Can he use that reasoning, that 28, 29 possible start to increase to mitigate the concern from his town that, yes, you're going to be increasing. All of us take a haircut initially, but as we bring on more staff and have the ability to bring in more students, Marshfield, as well as everybody else, are going to get more students.
You're right on, Tom. That's just what I'm hoping. Yeah.
Tom,
Yeah, I mean, you can't guarantee how many, but could you approach a town and say, this is what should be happening as time passes?
For one thing, for Joe's sake, could you, again, well, obviously, as of October 1, the ink is still wet on the paperwork for October 1st. But what was Marshfield's allocation going into this year's freshman class? And how many freshmen were actually admitted? Because as long as there's one more kid from Marshfield admitted above their quota, that would be a good thing that Joe could use to say, hey, we got allocated 28 kids and we actually got 30 kids in the system.
You're right, Jim.
Yep.
Yes, Jim, that's a very good point. That's something that we can look up. I know that Marshfield has a net gain of 31, but what's underneath, if I lift up the hood on that number, or for any of our towns, what I would want to be able to show you is we also had a lot of new sophomores. Unusual, but so part of the way that we got to a net increase of 20 students was we also admitted sophomores from various towns. Our focus here is talking about the haircut for grade 9. But even if I leave the upper class stuff aside, Jim, your point is well taken that we can look at the trend. We can certainly look at the trends to see where were there unused seats and how were they reapportioned.
Okay,
Thanks, Jim.
So, you guys just give me a moment. I'm not the person to talk about seat allocation. I tend to give most of mine back, unfortunately. So Joe, I'm trying to help you out the best I can.
Well, I appreciate it. Listen, thank you.
But I think that the core issue that we're looking at in this particular situation is the fact that we have an opportunity to add a 10th town to the district. And I know for our oversubscribed communities, our larger communities like Marshfield, it can be scary. It can be something that we don't necessarily want to do, or something that the town may not support fully. But going forward, we're talking about having a school for 1,000 kids. That's a net increase to all of us of 300 students. We don't know where those seats are going to go. We don't know how they're going to be apportioned because we don't know when they're going to be apportioned or where our 8th grade classes are going to be. I happen to be the parent of a student who would be the first freshman class in there if he chose to go. I also am the parent of 2 kids in preschool, and I'm told that their cohorts of kindergartners are going to be the largest the state has ever seen. So going forward, we have no idea what our school's classes are going to look like. If we fail to put Pembroke, or at least give Pembroke the opportunity to, if we fail to give them the opportunity to join now, we're going to be doing ourselves a disservice going forward. And I think that's the simplest way to look at it. I don't want to lose, well, I lose seats anyways, but if I were Rockland or Whitman or Marshfield, even Hanover and Situate now, I wouldn't want to lose seats. I wouldn't want to have that conversation. But in the long run, this is going to be better for every single town from the small to the big in terms of our ability to pay for the school. And it's going to be what not only the school district needs, but what the area, the South Shore needs. We need to show that we need to show everyone that we are a welcoming school. And we have the best to offer, because I read the Facebook posts, I read what the people of Pembroke are saying, and they're already talking about, there's already chatter amongst Pembroke and all of our other towns, Whitman, Rockland, Norwell, about adding technical programs to the high schools that they already have. And so if we want to continue to be the leader in vocational education that we are, we need to give Pembroke the opportunity to decide what they want to do. And that's what I have to say about it.
Very good. Yes.
Yep.
I agree 100%.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the regional agreement amendments as presented.
Motion.
I'll second that, Dan, for what.
Okay, so we get Bob Mahoney. Okay. Okay, roll call vote. Abington,
Yes.
Cohasset,
Cohasset, yes.
Hanover,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Marshfield,
Yes.
Norwell,
Yes.
Rockland,
Yes.
Situate, yes, Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, that vote was unanimous. I'll
Thank you.
entertain,
Oh, Mr. Chair, forgive the interruption. I just want to say thank you to the members of the Regional Planning Subcommittee. Thank you, committee members, for being on tonight. As a little postscript, I have an email that I'll be sending an email, and I'll be sending an email to the chairs of your select boards and a copy to town administrators, alerting them of this. When an amendment is approved, it needs to be forwarded to our towns within, I think, 7 days. It's in our regional agreement. So that communication will be sent out, and I'll make sure that you're copied on that so that you're aware. Thank you.
okay, now
And I'll get 2 copies.
yeah, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting.
Our motion, with all due respect, Whitman.
Abington, second.
Okay. All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed?
You do a roll call.
Yeah, sorry, Jack, could you go through the roll on that?
Okay, Abington,
Yes.
Cohasset,
Cohasset, yes.
Hanover,
Hanover, yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Marshfield,
Yes.
Norwell,
Yes.
Rockland,
Yes.
Situate, yes, Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.